Okay, chapter 13, kidnapped. So do you think they really tried to kidnap the girls? Remember in our last chapter, it was kind of a short chapter, but it was the boys that had really that had lived in the house before. I think their names were the Bensons. They wrote to the Hatfords and told the boys they really liked it in Georgia. So the boys wrote back. And then Jake had said something about kidnapping Caroline and holding her for ransom. So I don't know what's going to happen. Here we go. Chapter 13, Kidnapped. Tom and Helen Hatford seem such like a nice people, Mom said at breakfast as she put some melon on the table. Did I tell you girls that we talked with them a little while at the school the other night? I told them I appreciate the boys helping wash our windows. Yeah, great job, Eddie said dryly. Mrs. Hatford, though, is, well, a bit on the odd side. I was standing with her over by the refreshment table, and as I reached for a cookie, she said she was glad my family enjoyed desserts so much, that we all had such hearty appetites. One little cookie, she made it sound as though the five of us would finish off a whole cake in one meal. Strange. Very, agreed Eddie. Uh-oh. At school that morning, Caroline did not cross the auditorium to get to the restroom, as she had been doing once a day since she had discovered the new route. The sixth graders were in the auditorium watching a film, so it was not until lunchtime that when Caroline peeked, it was dark and empty once again. She did not have any trouble finding opportunities to step up on the stage. She could count on being excused from class at least once a day to go to the restroom. Sometimes she came in the building at recess to get a drink and made an auditorium detour, going back out again. If all else failed, she hurriedly ate her lunch, and then, when she took her milk carton to the trash, simply walked on out the door into the hall, slipped into the auditorium, and when she was finished, out the other side and onto the playground. She'd gotten into the habit of taking a book with her, any book at all, so she could practice reading a few paragraphs with expression from the stage. She could not talk nearly as loud as she would have liked, of course, because someone outside might hear her. So she stage whispered the paragraphs, always choosing a selection where at least two different people were speaking to give her practice reading several parts. The day before, she had read a selection from Charlotte's Web where the spider confessed to eating other insects. I have to live, don't I? Why, yes, of course, said Wilbur. Do they taste good? Delicious. Of course, I don't really eat them. I drink them. Drink their blood. I love blood, said Charlotte, and her pleasant, thin voice grew even thinner and more pleasant. Caroline had loved playing the part of Charlotte and had practiced hard to make her voice thin and pleasant. Pleasant was easy enough to do, but she had to work some to make it sound thin. The day before, she had read from Alice in Wonderland. But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, you can't help that, said Kat. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad. How do you know I'm mad? Said Alice. You must be, said the cat, or you wouldn't have come here. When she found that passage in the book, she had thought all morning about how she should read the part of the Cheshire Cat. But today she was chosen a page from The Wind in the Willows because it said that Mole spoke in anguish of heart. All during arithmetic that morning, she had wondered what sort of an expression anguish of heart would be. Something very dramatic, she was sure, a mixture of fear and sorrow, perhaps. So when she went to throw out her milk carton in the trash after eating, she sneaked across the hall to the auditorium and, with the book tucked under her shirt, slipped up on stage, out from behind the thick velvet curtain, and directly to the center of the platform. This was a conversation between Ratty and Mole. Caroline decided that she would look to the left when she was reading the part of Mole and to the right when she was reading the part of Ratty. She cleared her throat and began. The call was clear. The summons was plain. He must obey it instantly and go. Ratty, he called, full of joy and excitement. Hold on! Come back! I want you quick! Oh, come along, Mole, do, replied the rat cheerfully, still plodding along. Please stop, Ratty, pleaded the poor mole in anguish of heart. You don't understand. It's my home, my old home. I've just come across the smell of it, and it's close by here, really quite close. And I must go in it. I must. Oh, come back, Ratty. Please come back. Caroline stifled a sob. There was a titter in the audience. The audience? Caroline's hand dropped, the book in it, and she stared hard into the darkness of the auditorium. The laughter came again, louder this time, and quickly became a loud guffaw. The next thing Caroline knew, Wally and some of the other fourth grade boys were charging down the aisle and out the side door yelling, "Oh, please come back! I must go, I must!" And suddenly there was Miss Applebaum in the doorway, peering into the auditorium. "Caroline?" she asked. Caroline walked stiffly off stage. "What's going on in here?" the teacher said. "You're supposed to be out on the playground." "I was just leaving," Caroline said, and without looking in a mirror, she knew that her cheeks, her whole face in fact, was flaming. Out on the grass, Wally and the other boys were doubled over. They reeled in laughter, fell against each other, and one boy lay on his back screaming, "The smell of it! You don't understand! Oh, come back here, Ratty! Please, please do!" Caroline did not tell her sisters what had happened in the auditorium. It was too embarrassing. They hadn't even known she was sneaking into the auditorium at all. She could think of nothing else the rest of the day and wondered how long the boys had been there. It was Wally, she was sure, who had led them all there, but had they been spying on her at the other times as well? Had he been there the day she played tearful Becky Thatcher, lost in the cave with Tom Sawyer and crying, "Tom, Tom, we're lost, we're lost"? What she decided was that she could pay Wally back for this humiliation. This was 100 times worse than stealing Mr. Hatford's shorts. Day in, day out, noontime, nighttime, she didn't care. Somehow, some way, she would catch him doing something embarrassing as being caught on stage had been for her. For the next few days, Caroline said nothing at all to Wally Hatford, but she scarcely took her eyes off him. She followed him at a distance on the playground at recess. She stared when he went to the front of the room to put a problem on the blackboard. She watched from the next table when he ate his lunch. One false move from Wally Hatford, and she never let him forget it. Just let her catch him with something yucky between his teeth. Just let her catch him with his pants unzipped. Just let her catch him drawing something crazy in his notebook. "Wally Hatford," she recited every morning, "your time will come." Sunday was a clear day, warm and dry, and on days like this, the Hatford boys usually played in their backyard after church, once their clothes were changed. Walking along the river, Caroline and her sisters had often seen them whooping it up, playing kickball or throwing horseshoes. Mr. and Mrs. Malloy had left early that morning for the funeral of a friend back in Ohio and wouldn't be home until night. Caroline realized that if she could hide herself somewhere near the Hatford's house, she could spy on Wally all day without being missed. She told her sisters this much: "Wally embarrassed me awful in school on Friday, and I'm going to get him back no matter what." Beth was sprawled in a chair on the lawn reading The Shadow of the Werewolf. "Don't start anything until I finish this book," she said. "Well, I'm taking lunch with me, and I may not be home for a long time," Caroline said. "I just wanted you to know." "What have you got in your sack?" "Marshmallows and cheese crackers." "Toss me a marshmallow," Beth said, holding out her hands, and then popped it in her mouth and returned to her book. Caroline set out just before the Hatfords were due home from church. She remembered having seen a shed in the back of their house when she snatched Mr. Hatford's underwear from the line. This, she decided, was where she would hide, and had no trouble getting the door open and closing it after her. Once inside, she wished she'd brought a pillow or something, because the shed was dusty with bare earth floor and crammed with hose and shovels, lawnmower, and a sprinkler. There was, however, a narrow space between the edge of the door where the hinges were and the rest of the shed, and Caroline found that by sitting on an old toolbox and putting her eye to the crack, she could see almost the entire yard. The Hatford Chevy was just pulling into the driveway, and the boys got out and walked single file to the house. They all looked stiff and weird in their Sunday shirts and ties, and Caroline smiled as she dug into her sack of cheese crackers and settled herself more comfortably on the toolbox. She had expected it would be an hour at least before the boys ate dinner and came out in the yard, but was surprised when Mr. and Mrs. Hatford stepped out instead, dressed in old clothes and carrying some empty baskets. "Are you sure you don't want to come to the orchard with us?" Mother said, turning to Wally and Josh in the doorway. "No way," Josh told her. "You pick the apples and we'll eat them." "We'll pick the apples and you boys are going to help peel them," Mrs. Hatford replied. "2 bushels of apples would take me 2 days, but with 6 of us working, I figured we could do it in a couple of hours." "Oh, Mom, not that," Wally complained. "You won't groan when you see my apple pie," said Mother, getting in the car. "Don't forget your sandwiches now. They're on the counter." And the car backed down the drive. Caroline watched as Jake, Josh, Wally, and Peter came out the back door and sat on the steps to eat their sandwiches. They talked about how far you could shoot a BB gun and which decayed first after you died, your teeth or your bones. They were too far away for Caroline to catch every word, but she wished the boys would tell a story on Wally, something embarrassing he had done. She'd tell it all around school, and Wally would wonder how she knew. When the boys had finished eating, Josh brought out a sketchbook of some kind and seemed to be drawing funny pictures in it because the boys were all laughing. "That's her, all right," she heard Wally hoot. "That's just how she looked up there on stage, holding her book out in front of her like that. Yeah, make the corners of her mouth turn down, Josh, like she's about to bawl." Caroline's cheeks flamed a second time. Josh was drawing a picture of her. Wally must have told them all about listening to her up on stage. "Write what she's saying, Josh," Wally continued. "Oh, come back, Ratty. Please, please do." He mimicked her in a high voice, and the boys howled, Peter loudest of all. It was all Caroline could do to keep from bursting out of the tool shed right that minute and pounding Wally on the head. She wouldn't be surprised if he had told it at the dinner table in front of his parents. Now the boys were looking at pictures in the sketchbook, and from their hoots and laughter, Caroline could tell that Josh had sketched other pictures of her and her sisters as well. When the laughter died away at last, Wally came out into the yard with a small rubber ball and practiced catching by bouncing it against the shed. Blang, blang, blang. Caroline's head began to pound. Each time the ball hit the metal shed, it sounded like an explosion in a tin can factory. On and on it went, at least 20 minutes. Caroline felt as if her head was going to split open. Finally, Wally stopped, and all 4 boys lay down on their backs in the grass. "What do you want to do?" Wally asked Josh. "I don't know," said Josh. "What do you want to do?" "Go to the school and shoot some baskets?" asked Jake. "Nah," said Wally. "Bug the girls?" asked Josh. "Yeah," said Peter, Jake, and Wally. "Ha!" said Caroline. "We better wait a while. They're probably having Sunday dinner," Josh told them. "Man," said Jake, "I've thought about all kinds of stuff we could do to them on Halloween." "Yeah?" Caroline heard Josh say. "Wait till it snows. Boy, will we ever get them then." You remember how we used to sneak out on New Year's Eve with the Bensons, and Bill would blow his cornet right under someone's window at midnight? "Wouldn't that old Caroline just flip out?" said Wally. "What about firecrackers?" said Peter. "We could put firecrackers in tin cans and set them on the Malloy's porch. They haven't even seen Smuggler's Cove yet. We could throw Eddie's dumb cap down the old coal mine, see if she'd crawl in after it." "Bet she would, too," Jake said. "Remember when Tony Benson crawled in there and the rescue squad had to come and get him out? Wait till we get to junior high school. There are about 100 things you can do in a girl's locker. We could wait until Beth put her coat in some morning and then fix it so she couldn't get the lock open." Josh's voice. "Ha! Put Caroline in a locker and keep her there all weekend." More laughter. Back in the tool shed, Caroline smiled to herself. This was even better than she thought. Here she was, hearing all of their plans. Wait till she told her sisters. They'd know everything the boys were going to do before they did it. No matter what the boys tried, the girls would be ready. This was far more fun than Ohio. "Wait till the town picnic next summer. Man, we'll beat the girls at everything," said Jake. "The relay race, the sack race, the 3-legged race, the skateboard contest, the pie eating contest, volleyball." There was a long silence then, and for a moment Caroline thought the boys might have gone inside. She put her eye to the crack again, and they were still on the grass. "Unless," Wally said, and Jake finished for them. They go back to Ohio. Yeah, said Josh. If the Bensons come back, it's over. More silence. You know what I wish, said Wally. I hope the Bensons stay in Georgia long enough for us to do everything we plan to do to the Malloys, and then come back. Yeah, said Jake. That would be perfect. A year and a half, maybe, said Josh. Right, said Wally. Let's play horseshoes for a while, Jake suggested. He got to his feet and started straight towards the shed. No, he's coming in here. Caroline scrambled off the toolbox, grabbing her lunch sack, and tried to hide behind the lawnmower. The footsteps grew louder. Then the sound of the hinges creaked as the door to the tool shed opened partway. Caroline saw Jake's hand reach inside for the horseshoes on the shelf. She flattened herself against the back wall, but it was no use. Jake saw. What? His eyes opened wide. Hey, guys, look who we caught. Jake grinned as he opened the door wider. The others came running. It's Caroline, said Peter. Spying on us, cried Wally. And before Caroline could scramble back over the lawnmower and make her escape, Jake slammed the door shut. Bring me the bicycle padlock, Wally, he yelled. We've got a hostage, and her sisters aren't getting her back without a ransom. Kidnapped. Now what? Okay. So now, next one is chapter 14 called Hornswoggled. That's a funny name, isn't it? That's a funny word. Hornswoggled. I can't wait to find out what happens then. Oh, we'll have to wait till tomorrow. Same time, same place.